Hi everyone, I've had some questions about developing rubrics to align with the goals that you've set forth in your theories of action to collect data around how impactful we are with integrating technology into classrooms. So I just wanted to clarify this idea of the rubrics. The rubrics is one way to collect information, and we thought it would be a good way to really look at the Common Core State Standards, especially where we see evidence of technology embedded into the Common Core State Standards. So if you remember, I shared a folder with rubrics in it, and these have rubrics from kindergarten all the way through high school. I went through the Common Core State Standards and pulled out any standards where technology is embedded, and then I created a 0 to 4 sample rubric for each of those standards. So let's take a look, for example, here at grade 4. So you can enter the folder, open up the rubric for the grade that pertains to you, and then you can see here that grade 4 has a reading for informational text standard. This here, number 3, is the actual standard as it comes from the Common Core. And then I went and developed a 0, 1, 2, as well as a 4 based on this standard. In your classroom, when you think about what you want students to do with technology, think about the skills as it relates to the Common Core. Now, you don't have to use this entire rubric. If you prefer to say, yes, I'm doing an emphasis on writing in my classroom, and with the apps or the tools that I have on my iPad or on my laptop, I really want the students to be able to create and produce and publish their writing, then maybe you zone in on just this Common Core standard. Similarly, let's say you want students to be creating audio recordings where they're recording their voice and including information, and you want instead for students to focus in on this aspect of the Common Core State Standard. Then you might just pull out this piece of this rubric and use that to assess your students throughout the year. Please don't feel as though you have to use this entire rubric. You can zone in on one specific Common Core standard where technology is embedded that works for you. And again, this is not meant to be a lot of additional extra work. It's more to look at what are you doing in your classroom and how can we zone in and see how students are doing compared to this Common Core skill now that they have technology and have access to technology to be able to get towards this standard. So again, it's up to you. If you want to come in and use this rubric, you are welcome to. If you want to come into this rubric and go to File, Make a Copy, or you can rename it and then share it and put it into your own file, and you'll have access to the rubric there, where if you want to adjust this, if you want to change it, if you think that maybe the 1 and a 2 should look differently from how I have outlined it here, you're completely welcome to do that. If you want to just take this and use this, you're welcome to do that as well. It's completely up to you. And then as well, if you don't want to really assess and take data on all of these standards, go ahead and pick one standard that you can focus on, and then this rubric is what you would use to assess students throughout the entire year. So to be able to show growth, you take one rubric and continually use that rubric and show how students, where they were at the beginning, and then show how they've changed and grown along the way. So essentially, this is a way for you to collect formative information to guide your teaching to support students, because ultimately we want them by the end of the year to be proficient in this standard. So this is going to guide and help us see what information kids need to try to get to proficiency at this grade level band. As far as collecting data on this rubric, I have a sample data collection form. Again, you are welcome to it this way, but you don't have to. So this is an example for 5th grade. This is just a Google form. Basically, here we have the student's name and their grade level. This is useful if you have a split class and you have different grade levels. You might want to record that. And then basically, I'm going to delete this. Basically what you have here is a grid. So your rows lists the different Common Core standards. So this is an example where we might be collecting information on the reading informational text as well as writing. And then the columns show whether the student earned a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. So if you notice, because I'm collecting data on both of these standards, I only have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 here up at the top. Now, I spoke with someone last week who instead, when they created this, actually typed out 0 and copied in this specific explanation for one standard. So that's not going to work if you're collecting information on 2 standards, but for 1 standard you can do that. I would suggest that you, whatever rubric you would come up with, you print that out and then you use that to help yourself decide what score a student gets, and then you would come to your form to enter the data. So this person's using a rubric to collect information on 2 different standards, and then if here I go to the live form, this is where I would enter my information. So this might be, 5th grade, where I would enter the student's information here, and maybe at the beginning of the year or the beginning of implementing the technology, this is where the student performs, and then I would submit. It might be something different. Maybe throughout the year he increases, and hopefully he can get to a 3 by the end of the year. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But the whole idea is for us to be able to look and see how did students do, and how are we assessing and seeing how we change our instruction based on how students are doing. So again, this is more of the behind the scenes building the rubric, and then when you're ready, you go to View Live Form, and that'll take you to the user-friendly version where you can enter in your information. Okay, so I think that explains a little bit more about rubrics. I guess one more thing that I will add here is just when it comes to rubrics, we really are again zoning in on the Common Core state standard. And so it seems like in conversations that I've had with teachers, this is a little bit of a shift, that possibly before we used rubrics that were addressing content, and so this is different because Common Core is looking at a skill and what a student can do. And so the underlying skill here is the Common Core state standard, and then throughout the year the student might be applying different content to this skill. So at the beginning of the year you might have a unit on a certain topic, but the skills that you're assessing are still Common Core skills. And then throughout the years you continue, you might do different you might access different content, and students might be learning different content, but again, that underlying skill that you're assessing is still the Common Core standard. And so this rubric can be used throughout the year across different contents. You can use it anywhere, whether it's science, they still have to read and interpret information. If it's social studies, they still have to read and interpret information. But being able to collect data on that will give us a way to look at how the students are doing now at the beginning of implementation, and then further throughout the experience, and then by the end of the year to see how they've grown at the end. So hopefully that gives you some more information on rubrics. If you do have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. My email is jennifervincent@u46.org. Thanks so much.